Hey, it's Jordan Belfort calling from Stratton. You might not have heard of us before because for the last 10 years, we were strictly an institutional block trading firm dealing with a select group of banks, insurance companies, and pension funds. However, sir, we recently opened up our doors to the more substantial private investor like yourself. And all I want to do right now, with your permission, of course, is send you some information on my company, Stratton Oakmont, and then get back to you down the road next time we're making a recommendation to our core client base. Does that sound fair enough?
Okay, I like some of what he did, and I really dislike some of what he did. So let's break that down. Now, remember, if I'm understanding this correctly, this was his exact pitch when he was the Wolf of Wall Street before he got, in trouble for financial fraud. There's that. That was his exact pitch. Now, what he starts out with here, I like for the first few seconds. So let me point out exactly what I like. Let's hear that very first clip again.
Hey, it's Jordan Belfort calling from Stratton. You might not have heard of us before.
Okay. This is Jordan Belfort calling from Stratton. You might not have heard of us before. What I like about that, up until this point, we're on the same page. What I really like about that is he immediately identifies himself with what I would call a business edge to his voice. He doesn't sound like a lot of people do when they're cold calling, where they sound apologetic. Hi, this is Jordan Belfort. And look, women and men do this equally. I'm not picking on my gender here. We do this equally. He doesn't sound apologetic. He doesn't sound like he's making a cold call in the tone of his voice. I really like that. He's also not calling a stranger out of the blue and asking them, hey, how are you today? Which, when they don't already know who you are, that tends to cause people to kind of pause and the hair on the back of their neck stands up and they go, what's this? This is a cold call. I don't know what to do with this. And they get grumpy. So he's immediately, with the business edge, identifying himself, and he starts with what in the professional sales training world that I live in, we would call a pattern interrupt. You might not have heard of my company. So that interrupts the pattern of what you expect from a salesperson who's calling you out of the blue. And it sort of helps to start bringing down the guard of the person that has received the call. That part I like, but I don't like what happens next. Let's follow this.
Because for the last 10 years, we were strictly an institutional block trading firm dealing with a select group of banks, insurance companies, and pension funds. However, sir, we recently opened up on...
Okay, you don't need to hear all of that again, but it's not that what he's saying is bad on a cold call, but there's a little tiny step missing between introducing himself, which I really liked with the pattern interrupt, and where he starts to say, hey, the reason you might not have heard of us is, and he starts to talk about his company a little bit. If he had just put right in between there, getting a little bit of permission from the person receiving the cold call to share a little bit more about his company, that would have been even more effective. So let me explain what it would sound like, and then I can explain the psychology behind it. It would sound something like this. You might not have heard of us before, but let me tell you why I'm calling, and then you can tell me whether or not we should chat. Is that fair? And then I'm gonna pause. And what I've just done is I've broken up that situation that happens when we receive cold calls where we answer the phone, we don't know who it is, and all of a sudden it's just like a diarrhea of the mouth. Just like so many words. We're trying to process what's happening. They're giving us a pitch. We're not necessarily in the headspace to understand, how to process this. It almost feels like an assault of like, whoa. Like pitch slapped is the word that some people use, right? Pitch slapped. So instead, I can shift that emotional response in the person who's receiving the call by pausing and simply saying, hey, this is Jordan Belfort. I realize that you might not recognize the name of my company, but let me tell you why I'm calling, and then you can tell me whether or not it makes sense to chat. What I have just done is I've paused, allowed my prospect to say, sure, if I deliver that permission-based question with appropriate tonality and a business edge, they will always say yes. I have allowed them to understand that they have permission, after I share why I'm calling, to opt out if this is not of interest to them. And because I've given them that little bit of permission, hey, let me tell you why I'm calling, then you can tell me whether or not it makes sense to chat. Because I've done that, I have now made it a lot more likely that they kind of settle, they understand this is a cold call, but they're less mad about it, and they're actually going to listen to what I have to say. Whereas if I go in with the way that he's demoing, it's a lot at once, and we don't know if they are really paying paying attention, how they feel about it. It's like psychologically, it shifts things to get their little bit of permission. Okay. Let's hear this next piece.
To the more substantial private investor like yourself. And all I want to do right now, with your permission, of course, is send you some information on my company, Stratton Oakmont, and then get back to you down the road next time we're making a recommendation to our core client base. Does that sound fair enough?
So all he's asking for in this cold call, and this is why I think ultimately it was effective for him, even though he kind of calls and just kind of throws up on them, is because he's not asking them for anything beyond, let me send you some information. Very few people are going to say no to that. Okay, so in terms of was this cold call effective? Yes, it was, because most people probably said, okay, sure, send me some information. This isn't as simple as it seems. The reason that he was successful, I'm going to tell you right now, as an expert in this field, was not because of that cold call. Because if that's how the call ends, and he ends it with, he sent them some information with their permission, he has not done his job. There is a lot that happened after that in the follow-up, which is the reason that he was successful. And it wasn't because of this call. A poor cold call always ends with a prospect saying, send me some information. Could you send me some information? So if I call and they say, yeah, what is it? Who are you calling with? And what is it that you're selling? Hey, could you send me some information? I mean, we've all had that happen to us if we've cold called at all, right? And that is a put off 100% of the time. It means I'm trying to figure out if you're real. I'm trying to get you off the phone. I really don't want to talk to you, but it seems a whole lot more polite to ask you to just send me some information, because then I can give you unlimited access to my email and my voicemail and never answer your call again. That is not how I want a cold call to end, is send me some information. And yet that was the goal here. So if I'm measuring it in terms of did they let me send information? Okay, it worked. He followed up after that, and that's what made him successful, not because of this particular cold call. When I catch somebody and they allow me to share why I'm calling, I do a little permissive based, hey, let me tell you why I'm calling. You tell me whether or not it makes sense to chat. I'm gonna share instead a little bit about the pains that I solve. I work with customers who have problem A going on, problem B going on, or problem C going on. I'm not gonna assume, because I don't know you, that you have any of these issues. But based on what I just shared, is there any reason at all for us to have a brief chat when you're actually expecting my call? That is my ask. The goal of a prospecting attempt is to set a meeting and get the heck out of there. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Anything beyond, can we chat when you're actually expecting my call, is really not the point of prospecting. The point of prospecting is to set a meeting. The point of a cold call is to set a meeting. So that's what I'm asking for. If I get hit with, I'm not sure, could you send me some information first? If you're my client, I'm gonna coach you to say, happy to do that. Help me understand of the things that I shared, what would you like more information about? And I'm gonna get them to tell me what is it that they were interested in. And if they say, well, I don't know, all of it or none of it, like I'm trying to figure out how real it is. Now, I'm going to dig in a little bit and not just blindly send information. Because if I blindly send information, I might as well be peeing in the ocean, ain't nobody gonna see it. That's my opinion. Now, I know what you're thinking. Emily, Jordan Belfort was really successful, so what do you know? Fair. But here's what I can tell you. Based on that cold call, and put yourself in the shoes of a consumer, is the fact that he sent you some information what closed you? No, it's in the follow-up. So be careful about interpreting, hey, this technique worked for this person, therefore I'll take that in my world and make it work for me. It needs to be interpreted in the larger context. Prospecting is not an activity that exists in a vacuum. You don't make a single call and then it works because of that single call. It is part of a larger strategy. A cold call is one of many things that I'm doing to try to bring a prospect into the boat. And so be careful of anybody on YouTube, social media, LinkedIn, whatever, who's telling you if you do this one thing, it will close sales. If you do this one thing, it will mean you're gonna make $1 million this year. Sales is not as simple as this one thing. And in this channel, I hope to help you break through the noise. I hope to help you understand how all of the things that we do collectively as salespeople in every conversation that we have with prospects, we can work on each one of those pieces to cumulatively allow them to work together and close more deals. If you want to see more reaction videos from me, let me know. I only had time for 2, it turns out, because I talked a lot about each one of those, but I could do more Jordan or I could do something else. Send me the video you want me to react to and we'll do it. Remember, the world's best salespeople are not fantastic just because they were born with the natural ability. That's not what happened. They are trained and I train them. Good selling.